Hola and welcome to Unplayed. I am so very happy you're here. The purpose of this channel is to educate women by showing them the truth behind all the confusing and hurtful games some men play with women, especially during the dating process. This channel will prepare you, empower you, educate you so that you can protect yourself from these games and ultimately become unplayed.
Dropping heavy fucking games on, and I look at you as someone who, I feel like dudes who understand the game can recognize other guys who understand the game. You feel what I'm saying? I feel like you go a lot deeper than a lot of people when it comes to this game, because you talk about spirituality. You have a product called Using the Law of Attraction to get women.
Exactly how it works. So one of the laws is called the Law of Attraction. It's the 11 laws for successful living. But there's 5 other laws that talk about other aspects of just successful living, and I show you how to be successful with women using those particular principles, or just things that I got from there, and I just flip it and apply it to women using these principles.
Let's say you're thinking about a girl, right? You're sort of transferring a lot of that energy, I guess, like toward her, because I think a lot of people don't understand how real like energy is, and how that that impacts your interactions with women and all that other stuff. So can you talk more about that?
But the thing we have to understand is that thoughts are real things. Thoughts are frequencies. Thoughts can be measured, so thoughts travel. The same way if I text you right now, the text doesn't magically appear on your phone. It went on an invisible radio wave or sound wave or whatever it is and traveled to your phone at lightning speed. So thought travels at 28.7 billion miles per second. So every time you have a thought is energy. It's electricity. It's traveling and it's moving. So people always say one thing that everybody that's been in the game will notice is if you've ever been in love and you've been in love and you really like a girl and you want her to call you but she won't call you. The moment you move on or you're out somewhere hanging out with your friends or doing something fun where you forget about her, then all of a sudden it hits you up. The girls you forgot about hit you up. You know what I mean? When you stop thinking about them. And that's because you stop sending them energy. What we have to understand about women is attention is currency for a woman. Attention is currency. So when you stop sending that attention out, she begins to say, it not consciously, she doesn't think this, but subconsciously she feels a shift. And she's like, she feels a shift in energy. So now she begins reaching out to recover that again. If you ever went on a diet, you'll know that you'll lose the weight, and then your mind will start creating excuses to make you gain it right back. Yeah, it's just one piece of pizza, and it'll start giving you excuses. That's your subconscious trying to regain whatever was lost. Whenever you lose something, the subconscious tries to regain it. So when a woman loses that thought energy, that thought attention coming to her, she doesn't know, oh, he stopped thinking about me, but she's like, man, I miss him. I don't know why I miss this guy. Let me reach out to him. And it's just so she can reattach herself to that energy through value your energy and value your thought, and only give it at a cost. Don't be riding your bike thinking about a woman. And don't be at school or at work thinking about a woman. The only time you need to be thinking about a woman is when you're on the phone with them, or you're out with them, or when you're planning up or texting in order to meet them. When you're that way, women, they chase you. When you're not sending them energy, they're sending you energy and they're chasing you. So I dig deep because I got to get as deep into the bottom of this as possible, so I can show you where this comes from. Because game has been game since the first man and woman has been alive. What you'll see is a lot of guys teach about being mysterious and having a vibe of mystique, and a lot of people try to contrive that or fake that, and they're like, man, I'm trying to be mysterious, but the women are getting turned off. It's because your mystery is not rooted in anything real. There is no mystery about you. You're a square guy that lives a square life that does regular square things.
Right.
And your energy and vibe is going to reflect that. So one thing I tell guys is keep secrets for yourself. So there's a fine girl that everybody wants.
Right.
And if any of the guys in the circle sleep with her, they tell all the guys, yo, I hit it. You know what I'm saying? But I'd be the one, I'm not going to say anything. And what that does, it builds up a reserve of mystery. Now, maybe that one thing may not give me much mystery, but over practicing that over time, over practicing reserving certain things for yourself that you never tell anybody, you help build a genuine air of mystery about yourself.
Right.
I have that by having secrets. Because of that, it gives me a genuine air of mystery about me that women, they just look at me and they know something's a little different.
Right.
Guys always say, man, how'd you get all this game? I tell you everything. It's how you get so deep like this? Because I've been practicing these things since I was a little kid. Because I was schooled and taught certain things and I've been practicing for a long time.
Do pickup artists tactics work anymore? I think like people lump the whole seduction community into one thing. It's like, you know, you're a pickup artist or you're this or you're that. And what I saw that you said that I totally agree with and I've talked about before is that a lot of pickup artists, what they do is they sort of teach or try to break down what like the guys who are natural at it do in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So what's your thoughts on that?
The pickup artist community, initially, it started out as something for the nerds to make a scientific way to do what the naturals were doing.
Right.
You know, like these are things like natural alphas, you know, they teach like push and pull or assume attraction, you know, and these are things that people that found themselves attractive naturally did.
Right. They
pretty much developed a scientific way for the nerds to get laid. And now it's like Revenge of the Nerds. Like now we figured it out, we cracked the code, we've hacked the system.
Right.
Now let's use this to go, you know, do our thing. So that's originally where it came from. I first got into the pickup artist community as a natural because I just thought it was cool that I found a collective of men who because I've been out approaching women since I was 12 years old. I'm saying like I grew up with my pops. My pop would be, when I'm 3 years old in the car seat, and I have memory of this, he'd be pulling over the car to hop out the car to holler and bag women and get their numbers and jump back in the car, and we keep going to where we going.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I've seen this growing up. So it's always been a natural practice for me. But when I found it, I was like, oh, this kind of dope. There's a bunch of guys that this is what they do, and it's something that I was doing. So I kind of, you know, I found camaraderie within that. And now we're in a place where we got people like you, people like myself, and we're trying to restore order and just put things back in motion the way it's supposed to be. Play this game.
No, that's the same way I feel about it, because, you know, I feel like a lot of the issues, because I hear a lot of the MGTOW dudes, they're like, oh, but, you know, women are doing this, women are doing that. And I'm like, well, the reason why most women are doing that is because we drop the ball and allow women to do certain things. Because I feel like any guy who knows how to interact with women and usually doesn't have as many problems as these guys are saying they have it. You know what I mean? So I'm like, you know, a lot of times the problems occur because from the jump, you didn't instill any type of structure or any type of game in the situation.
The problem with men now is they're so emotional that they don't know how to implement consequences. They're just hot or cold. They just like, oh, she did this, fuck her, I'm leaving, I'm never talking to her again.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? They don't know how to give a demotion, but still deal with her at the same time. But give her a demotion. Now, if she says, man, I don't want no demotion, I'm going to leave, all right, cool, go ahead. I ain't asking you to stay.
Right.
But you can give a woman a demotion in your life, and you don't necessarily have to worry about getting emotional and running away from it and kicking her to the curb. You know, if you want to accept that demotion and get rid of her.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to kick every woman away. They can still have a purpose in your life. I always say, man, any woman in my life is going to be contributing to making my future better. And if she doesn't wake up in the morning and say, man, what could I do to help him advance in his life, then I don't really need her around.
Right.
I always say, man, every woman in my life wakes up every day because I instill this and say, how could I help him succeed? What could I do to make his life better? That's what they don't. You know what I'm saying? And the more people you have doing that, just imagine where you're going.
You have another product. You said getting women to pay for your time. Is that the joint?
Yes, sir.
So what is that about? So how do you get a woman to pay for your time?
I'll tell you something right now. Let me just tell everybody watching. It's some of the coldest game I've ever spit. This is some of the coldest game I've ever spit, man.
Right.
It's some of the coldest game I've ever spit. This is some of the coldest game I've ever spit, man.
You know how many guys that I coach that got lots of money, but they're miserable because they don't know how to get a woman without using their money?
Right.
You know, they don't feel like true men. So anyone should pay for anybody's time. This is where this all started. Because what I always say is when you lose attraction for a woman and you feel like you don't want to deal with them no more, I'm not really feeling her no more because she's draining. She's taking more away from me than she's giving me. All we said was, how could we balance this out? When we become mature adults, we can sit to the table and I can have a conversation with a girl. I'm like, hey, listen, you like me? You're interested in me? You love being around me? I understand that. but I don't feel like I'm getting value from this relationship the way that you feel like you're getting value, which is why you want me around. I don't feel that way.
Right.
And so this all started because a girl asked me, she said, so what can we do? What can we do to balance it out?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it, and I'm just like, you know, I'm real and raw anyway, so I'm just like, the only thing you can really do is pay me.
The only thing you can really do is pay me.
I feel you on that. I feel you on that. Go deeper. Go deeper. Let these cats know.
Money is beneficial to me. Now it's like, and what I noticed was, as she started paying me, I liked her again. I really enjoyed being around her. Or she possessed something that I needed. We'd be here. She wouldn't have to give me anything.
Right.
But because she didn't, and she still wanted to be around, I had to think of a way that we could balance and level this out.
Mm.
So my thing is, it doesn't even have to be money. You could say, listen, I got a company. Maybe if you came and worked at my company for 2 hours after work a day, you know what I mean? You could be benefiting me as well. Then we can have a relationship.
Mm.
You have to be like, they have to want you though. This is the thing. You have to, and this is what I teach mainly. You have to establish yourself as somebody that they want and that they desire.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then you could, you know, some women don't got to pay you because they don't got to do anything. You know what I mean? Because their value is that great. Some women don't have as much value, and they have to compensate for their value, whatever it is that they have, whether that be money, food, working for you, or whatever it may be. So
that's what's up. That's I like that, man. This is, you guys got to get that. I'm gonna have the link to the that at the bottom of this video too, so everybody can get that.
Because we think about pimping when we hear this. We think the first thing you think about a woman giving you money is pimping.
Right.
But
we think about pimping when we hear this. The first thing you think about a woman giving you money is pimping. Right.
But and pimping is a perverted version of just, you know, it's a perverted version of the game. I'm not pimping these women out. Getting women to pay for your time, some of the heaviest game I've ever dropped, and using the law of attraction with women. All my new program should be out next week. Officially for everyone, it's called Getting Women to Your House on the First Date. What we talked about earlier, how you don't really have to go on dates. I show you how it's done, how I executed it, and even the conversations that I had with certain women that were resisting the idea.
How to get a woman obsessed with you. Here we go. Which is that falling in love is not something someone does to you. It's something you do to yourself when they're not around. Flipping it around is something a girl does to herself when you're not around. So what does this mean? It means that it's something internal going on in the girl's mind, and it also means there has to be some distance. There has to be some space or some absence to create it. Second thing I want to give to you as an example comes from studies of gambling. The thing that makes gambling machines addictive is the variable payouts. The fact that you don't know when you're going to be rewarded, you don't know when you're going to be punished. And so it becomes very addictive where you pull that lever and you don't know, and there's that anticipation. Anticipation is part of what can create an addiction. And the first thing I want to focus on is this idea of absence, right? If you are constantly with someone and you're constantly providing positive emotions to someone, what happens? Well, they start to get used to positive emotions, they start to get used to your presence, and they start to take it for granted, right? And as soon as you're taken for granted, you're in a bad way. In fact, that's one of like the death knells for a relationship, right? If anybody in a relationship is being taken for granted, it's usually a sign of the beginning of the end of the relationship. However, if contrary to that, or contrasting that, you were to provide all kinds of positive things, provide all kinds of positive experiences, and then occasionally be missing or be absent, the person would have an opportunity to miss those positives and actually realize how good they were. If you're putting out 100% positivity all the time, the value being absorbed by the other person and the amount of connection and obsession being created in the other person would actually be less than if you actually put out, 100% and then like 0%, or 100% and then 30%, and there's this variation and there's this absence. So I want you to understand that absence is actually very, very useful. Along the lines of this absence is also disappointment, right? Because again, if the experience with someone is always positive, then they just get used to it, they take it for granted. But if you give someone an occasional disappointment, then it allows them to note the positive even more. And this is actually true when you talk about training animals, right? If you were to train an animal to come when it's called, right? Maybe train your dog to come when it's called, train your cat to come when it's called, and each time it comes, you feed it. But if every single time when the animal comes, you feed it, then if you ever stop feeding it, Now all of a sudden it learns very quickly you're not feeding it anymore, and it will stop coming when it's called. But if during the training process you feed it most of the time but sometimes not, and then you feed it occasionally but most of the time not, and then you just feed it, very sporadically, it will actually ingrain the habit very, very deeply. And the longer you can go without feeding it and have it come when it's called, the deeper the habit is built and the more trained the animal is, right? It's something you've definitely heard of before, but it gets massively underutilized in game, which is disqualifying, okay? Legitimately actually pushing the girl away, being a little resistant, being a little hesitant, giving the girl an actual hard time in game. And I'm not talking about little cutesy teases like, part of me loves you and part of me hates you with a smile on your face. That does work, and it does work in part because there is an element of teasing disqualification there, and you're simulating being flirtatious, you're simulating disqualification. But I'm talking about real disqualification, where you actually truly challenge someone, or you actually truly do give a reason why you and the girl might not work out, right? Where you're legitimately like with a girl and you clearly like each other and you're like, this probably isn't gonna work, right? And she's like, why? Like, well, listen, we live too far away. I mean, we like each other. It's not practical. I don't think we need to get invested and potentially break each other's hearts and stuff like that. I just don't know if it's a good idea, right? Something like that. Now, obviously, this has to be calibrated, and this has to be done at a time when she likes you enough already to care. And that's the funny thing about this. These techniques to create investments work better once there's already investment. So once there's a little bit of investment, you can use one of these investment magnifiers or multipliers to get much more investment. And then because there's much more investment, you can use another one of these magnifier multipliers to get much more investment. So you have to get the girl to like you a little bit, be invested just a little bit because of good emotions, because of the positives that you're bringing. And it is important. If you never bring a positive, you never bring a good emotion to a girl, none of this will work anyway, right? But once you do have that little bit of investment, you can multiply it to more and more and more and deeper investment. And these legitimate pushaways actually do have that effect, right? And obviously a teasing pushaway might be a good way to start to get a little bit of investment, a little bit of buy-in, and then you can do a more real legitimate pushaway. And again, you do need to be calibrated, right? These are powerful techniques. The next technique I want to give you is leaving the girl on red strategically at the right times. So obviously, if you just never respond to a girl's text, that's not a good text messaging strategy because it's not going to go anywhere. There's not enough to it to go anywhere. On the other hand, though, if you're texting back immediately all the time, you look needy, you look desperate, the girl knows she can have you, and there isn't a lot of suspense or tension there. So somewhere in between is good. But the question is, how can you leave silences and leave those gaps in such a way that it doesn't destroy the continuity, it doesn't destroy the progression of the texting? And one good answer to that is to leave silences and gaps at very strategic good times. And I'll give you two specific times when it's often, not always, but it can definitely be a good idea to not text the girl back, or at least not text the girl back right away. So situation one is, let's say you're texting a girl and it's kind of late-ish into the evening. You're not gonna hang out with her tonight. For whatever reason, either you're busy, she's busy, it's not possible, you're far away, whatever, you're not gonna hang out with her tonight. So you're not losing anything by ending the texting. And you've kind of come to a point where she sent the last text and there's nothing more to be achieved tonight. You know, the emotions are good, the teasing is good, there's no further escalation possible. And a lot of guys will send something like, sounds good, good night, or sweet dreams, or like a thumbs up or something like that. Or, okay, I'll hit you back tomorrow, something like that. And what that does, it closes the loop, right? It makes the girl completely comfortable. It makes the girl know she can have you. It makes her completely secure, and it takes away any seed of doubt in her mind. It also means that if she doesn't text you next and you text her next, you're gonna be double texting her. So it's a situation where there's absolutely nothing gained by texting, there's nothing to be achieved from that text, and there's plenty to be lost. You're losing the suspense, and you're losing the fact that if she doesn't text back, now you have to double text. So in that situation where the texting is good, she sent the last message and there's nothing left to achieve, I would strongly consider not texting anything else that night. Just leave it. And then, especially if we've been texting back fairly actively. And then one of two things will happen. Either she won't text back, in which case you text the next day and it's the same as if you texted that night, except now you're restarting the conversation when there's more to be achieved, right? You're restarting the conversation on a day when maybe the conversation can go longer, or you actually can hang out, or it can go somewhere. So it's actually better than it would have been. And she waited a little bit and wondered, or possibly she waits and wonders and then texts you again that night because she worries that like she offended you, or she worries where you went, or she starts to feel lonely or miss you. And now you're getting the seed of that obsession. You're getting the seed of her chasing, which is much, much, much better. All right, so either way, there's nothing lost and something possibly gained. This is a very opportune time to not text that night, wait till the next day, and then you can follow up as you would have anyway with nothing lost. And then if she follows up instead of you, or if she even has the thoughts of following up and wonders if she should follow up, even if she doesn't do it, you've gained something in the interaction. You've gotten her more attached to you than you would have had you texted right then and there. Second time that it's often very good to leave the girl on red for at least a little bit is when she sends a very committal text or a very try-hard text. So for example, let's say the girl tries for like a joke in text and it's kind of lame. It's a good time to just go silent for a few hours. Especially if you've been texting back pretty actively, maybe just go silent for a little bit. Or if you're texting, more sporadically, like a couple times a day, maybe just go silent for a day or something like that, and then you can hit her back up. And she's gonna worry and wonder, oh shit, was that lame? Did I look stupid? Does he not like me? Did I offend him with that joke? And she's very likely to double text, maybe apologize, maybe qualify herself, maybe jump in and ask you a question just to not get silence from you, etc. And again, you're creating the situation where she's the one chasing you instead of you chasing her. Think back to all those times when you sent something that you thought was clever or creative or interesting or funny to a girl, and then you didn't get a response back, and you're like, oh shit, what did I do wrong? Did this text suck? And you start showing it to your friends, you start obsessing about it, you start thinking, should I text her again? You're doing that same exact thing to her, except girls feel it 10 times more strongly than you do because they're way more validation sensitive than we are as men. Okay? So these are two very good situations where just leaving it on red, there's nothing lost. You can always text a few hours later, you always text the next day, etc. But there's so much to be gained if she does double text you, triple text you, etc. And even if she doesn't, if she had the inclination to, if she had the urge to, if she looked back in her pocket and thought about it, you still gain something, even if she didn't send the double text. The next technique is a much more general one. It's not a specific one-off kind of do this specific thing, say this specific line thing. It's an overall theme that can exist throughout your entire interaction. And this has to do with framing and sort of story. You may be familiar with the concept of narrative, right? Narrative is, at least as expressed in the system, the idea of the story between you and the girl. How she's interpreting the situation. It's the frame which determines the events, right? So is the frame that she's chasing you or that you're chasing her? Depending which frame exists, all of the different actions, you picking her up for a date versus her picking you up for a date versus you getting her a gift or her getting you a gift or you kissing or having sex, all these things have a different meaning depending on who is perceived to be chasing, depending on who is perceived to be the prize. So setting yourself up as the prize is one example of framing and storytelling that will lead to a more obsessive girl than if the frame was that you're chasing her. Another great form of narrative storytelling is the story of us. The story of you and the girl and how you met, the story of you and the girl and what you mean to each other, why you're good together. So as much as you can, you want to encourage these narratives in the girl where possible. If she has some kind of like cool story of how you and she met and she likes telling it to her friends, encourage that, right? Let her tell that story, right? Be positive about that story, even like feed into the story as well, those kind of things. If she has particular things she loves about you, particular similarities that she really highlights and likes to talk about, encourage that narrative, talk up that narrative, occasionally do a little like subtle reminder of those kind of things. You want to create again that story that you're special. A lot of like the best couples have those stories. They have those inside stories, inside jokes, and especially like those kind of sweet little things that they share. Those little things that are part of their story. So definitely encourage those to happen. Now you want to be careful because the other elements of framing, right, which is that you're not chasing. So if it looks like you're trying super hard to create this similarity, that's not good. But when these things come up naturally, when an opportunity arises spontaneously, or when she seems to be going in that direction anyway, certainly don't stop her, and certainly even encourage it or play along a little bit. So encourage these stories where they can occur, right? First of all, frame yourself in the positive way, create that good story about who you are relative to her, but also create great stories about who you guys are together. A great story, for example, is the idea of you and her against the world. That's a great framing that you can use at times. The next technique I want to share with you is one of the most powerful, most misunderstood, and most misused techniques in all of game. And this is a technique called the freeze out. The way most guys use a freeze out, for example, is with regards to, say things are moving towards sex, they're progressing towards some sort of escalation or some sort of outcome you want, and then if a guy gets rejected, what he will do is he'll kind of go cold or go silent or pull away. And the idea is that you're sort of like punishing the girl's rejection and you're sort of making her feel the loss of you. And that's supposed to make her come around. And the idea is that she's supposed to feel that losing your attention hurt more or was more uncomfortable than whatever escalation she was resisting. And so you're sort of emotionally blackmailing her almost into doing what you want. And this is what I call a preemptive freeze out. And so what I will do, say for example, again, you're escalating, maybe things are moving in a sexual direction, but you're not completely sure it's going to go all the way to sex. Or even if you are, you just want to create more tension to make the interaction better, to create more buy-in, to make the sex better even, because it's part of foreplay. What you might do is along the way, when there's no obstruction towards sex, you might actually create an obstruction or you might just pull away randomly. So let's say you're sitting on the bed making out and it's going pretty well and you're like, yeah, we can maybe have sex now. But instead of pushing forward and trying to have sex like 99.9% of guys would do and being that pushy guy that's like all, grabby and handsy and whatnot and clearly has an agenda, instead what you do is you in that high point, at that high moment, instead of trying to escalate, which, escalating on a high point makes sense in game, but instead of escalating on that high point, you intentionally pull away, right? Intentionally, like at that moment, you go, hang on, hold that thought for a second, and you leave the room, go do something. Maybe if you're drinking wine, you go refill the wine glasses and just take a minute. And then maybe when you come back, instead of sitting right back down on the bed and going back to making out, which would be the obvious thing, instead maybe of sitting back on the bed, you go sit on the chair next to the bed. And the girl wonders, what the heck? Why did he stop when things were good? Why did he leave the room? Why, when he came back, did he not jump back into making out with me? And now she starts to be a little bit obsessed. And actually, this is a good lesson for game and a good kind of story. One of the great ways that this technique came about was from someone who was an early mentor of mine. He was on a date, and there was a situation where there was kind of a pool and a hot tub and him and a girl. And so what he did is he sat in the hot tub with a girl thinking things were all good and going all smoothly, and then the girl got up out of the hot tub and dove into the pool and just swam in the pool. So now he's sitting in the hot tub all by himself while the girl's in the pool. And he's like, well, this sucks. We're not talking. She's just swimming around. I'm just sitting here. What's going on? And so he waited just enough time to not make it seem needy. And he got up and dove in the pool after her and went to do the whole swimmy, splashy, sexy thing. Except she played along for a minute or two. And then she got up, went out of the pool and went and sat in the hot tub. And then he's sitting there in the pool and she's in the hot tub. And the more times this happened, the more needy it looked. And so that sort of preemptive freeze out, when things were going very well, there was no reason to stop it. Her stopping it made him chase, right? Now, again, flip it around. If you do the same kind of a thing to a girl, understand that her reaction to it's going to be 10 times stronger because girls are much more validation based in their emotions and they're much less used to that sort of thing. They're much less used to be putting in the position of being the chaser. And so it definitely has a bigger effect on them. So I hope you enjoyed that dive into some of the dark but highly effective techniques of game.
Ladies, as you can see, unfortunately, things have changed. Things have changed into a very negative interaction where our protectors have become our biggest threat. They manipulate, they use, and take advantage of women. And they know that we are very sensitive beings, that we don't go around manipulating people. We usually have our guard down when we're approached by a gentleman, thinking that he actually, might just want to get to know us and possibly just create a relationship with us. When in reality, what a lot of these lost males are doing is having a very dark plan for us. And we need to become aware. We need to share this with a lot more women. We need to protect ourselves from these lost males. They have completely lost their way and they are messing up with nature. This is not what their role was supposed to be. Their role was supposed to protect us, not to take advantage of us. I have so much more material coming up that is just unbelievable. How these lost males have just completely changed something so sacred as a beautiful relationship into something so disturbing to do. We need to become aware and we need to be guarded now. We need to protect ourselves. We cannot just be out there trusting that these men are out there just because they want to have a relationship with us. Not all of them are like that. Not all of them. Make sure that you go back and you watch Introduction to Real Men so that you can ground yourself that the real men are out there. But I really need you to start waking up. Wake up to this truth. These males, these lost males, are out there. And their goal is a full-time job, making sure they gather all this information on how to use you. And how to use you, and how to deceive you, how to take everything they can from you and then discard you. So please wake up and share this video with as many women as you can. Please learn from this. Let's just open our eyes and say enough to this. No more of this. No more. And you know what? I don't want you to be thinking, oh, but I need to be on my feminine energy. You are the feminine energy. Why would you be giving your feminine energy to these players that only want to use you and take advantage of you? No, you need to protect yourself. Okay, do not allow anyone to use you or play with you. And then if this person proves himself with consistency in his actions matching his words, then you can allow yourself to lower that shield. Okay, no more of this. Enough is enough. We're not doing this anymore. All right, see you on the next one.